Hello, Gramophone fans. I'm Joe Finn, and I'm excited because for a couple of reasons this evening. Our first level of excitement is that we're going to be presenting to you with Sony, and that's a good thing in and of itself because I don't know that there is a more iconic brand in the entire consumer electronics industry. But the other is we get to present with our friend Kavon Nezamabadi. And Kavon, it's good to see you again, and I'm so excited to be doing a live broadcast with you together. This is awesome stuff.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for having me. Really excited to talk about all the new and cool stuff we got.
Yeah, and there's a lot of new and cool stuff, that's for sure. Before we get rolling, I probably should just remind everybody that we're broadcasting live from the Gramophone Experience Center here in Timonium, Maryland, which is literally right across the parking lot from the long-standing Timonium store. This is an absolutely beautiful location, and we're really glad to be able to, have this location where we've got so much top quality equipment on display. Right now, I'm broadcasting from the Invisible Theater. And if you want to see a theater that's got incredible performance and you don't have to see any speakers or projectors or even the television itself if you don't want to, this is the place to see it. And I also want to just welcome all of you folks in Gramophone Land because it's been a little bit since we've done one of these lives, and so we're glad to have you all on board. And then I think, Kayvon, before we actually talk about Sony product, let's just talk about you a little bit so our listeners know who they're talking to or observing, because you really have a pretty rich history of being in this industry. And so maybe you can share just a little bit of first how you got into the industry in the first place, and then second how you came to be on board with Sony and have your current position of overseeing the custom installation side.
Yeah, Joe, no problem at all. And just to vouch for the Experience Center, I was just there the other week for Gramophone Live, and goodness, what you guys done with that space and the invisible speakers, I thought was really neat. The aesthetic, which we'll actually talk a little bit about on the Sony side of how its aesthetic plays into our lineup. Was just really cool to see because I think that's the new big thing with the industry is not only does it look good, sound good, but does it physically look good to to look at when it's off as much as it's on or when it's on. But yeah, in terms of where I started with Sony, so I've been in the AV industry for ever since I think 2009, and I've been with Sony since 2015. I did a lot on the retail side. Always been around the custom install industry in one way or another, but now I am head first in it now, basically representing Sony's premium home theater business for the East Coast. So I'm here to help out the dealers with any questions that they have, and also even our clients that might have some questions about both product and install related stuff around our product lineup. So it's been a great year. We had the receiver lineup earlier in the year. The TV lineup followed after that. The projector lineup has been extremely solid. So I'm not saying my job has been easy per se, but the product speaks for itself. And thankfully, I don't have to do a whole lot of talking. So
Well, that is a tremendously positive thing, I would say, that, Sony right now, and you and I talked about this in terms of as we were just kind of running through a little trial run to look at your presentation and so forth. It's amazing to me that Sony is hitting the home run on the home theater receivers and on the projectors and on the display devices because you guys really are strong in all areas right now. And in fact, if you don't mind, let's just take a quick. Uh, we've got a question already. It looks like a couple people have rung in, and it looks like GK Scott is saying, is there going to be a Super Sony ES Pre-Pro to replace the TA E9000? And if, of course, you're not able to talk about new products, that's the case too. So you
putting
can
me in
share.
a tough spot. So we don't have anything official as of right now, GK. But great question because I think the pre-pro market is something that, from a processing perspective, is very important to make sure that you have something that is as solid from the processing side as you are the amplifying side. But one thing I can say, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in the presentation, is that our new receiver lineup has what's called 360 spatial sound mapping. And while it's not a pre-pro in and of itself, that audio processing is so powerful in transferring audio from speaker to speaker and very seamless fluidity in the format of speaker layout. It's just really cool to see some of these receivers that we're selling are actually being used as a pre-pro solution. So we don't have anything official, but we can get creative with our current lineup. And who knows if we end up selling enough of these or if these are popular enough option in regaining that share that we once had with our receivers, and also just the trust from our client base. I think it's very important to show Sony we're back with receivers, and also a very solid lineup. We're not just looking to get back into it for the sake of it. We are coming and making a statement with this new lineup. So if we do something in the future, who knows? But I think we're well on our way and making a good case for them.
Yeah, Kavon, we made, I think I mentioned earlier, videos on all four of the new receivers earlier this year, and we're very impressed by them. I mean, we certainly have here at Gramophone the luxury of having some real premium brands in the receiver category, but you guys are doing a great job with that right now. And in fact, that's something you're going to be addressing in the presentation that you're going to do. So before we maybe launch into your presentation, I should probably
Yeah.
mention we've already just posted a little note that if anybody has questions, please feel free to fire away as we go. But secondly, we also want to let you know that later on in this broadcast, we'll be telling you a little bit about a giveaway that we've got. Sony was very generous in stepping up to the plate in one of our single most popular selling products from Sony. So thank you, Kavon, for going to bat for us on that to do the free giveaway. And there's a couple more questions here, it looks like.
Sure thing.
Does or will Sony support HDR10 Plus?
So HDR10 Plus is a format that's kind of dedicated to help out with color transition, what we know as banding. Whenever you see a similar one color, multiple shades of that color, you'll get what's called banding in some TVs. And our processor actually has a processing algorithm dedicated to helping with banding, which is what HDR10 Plus is really known for. We do support HDR10 and then Dolby Vision, of course, across our TV lineup. But as of right now, just HDR10, because our processor helps with a lot of what HDR10 Plus is known well for. So no real need to have the format as of right now.
Okay, very good. And hey, Brett. Brett has rung in a couple times here. That's good to see too. So Kavon, if you want to get started with your presentation, I know you've got a lot of good things to share. As you mentioned earlier, new receivers, refreshed projectors, and even at very modest pricing in the projector, a whale of a product. And then
Yeah.
also, of course, you're killing it right now with the flat panel TVs. So if you want to fire up and take us in with the home theater tech preview.
Yeah, sure thing. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and start with receiver, and then we'll kind of just see where the wind takes us. But just getting into the start of our new lineup of receivers, and I kind of like to look at it from an overview perspective in terms of what we're looking at. So, if we took the top of the receiver case off and we were looking down, I like to look at this because this shows a few different things that we can quickly talk about. But first off, we have a massive heatsink right here on top of the I/O block, which is your HDMI input and output. And with HDMI 2.1, we've seen some issues with handshaking, especially going back to some of the older devices like HDMI 1.4 cable boxes and stuff along those lines. So with HDMI 2.1, seeing some issues in the field with handshaking, we found out that when we're passing so much data, 48 gigabit a second, we can run into some of those handshaking issues because it's just a lot of data being passed through an old reliable HDMI cable, right? HDMI always works as intended, and that's kind of the I guess running joke is HDMI is awesome, but at the same time, you got to make sure everything handshakes well. So we have a heatsink on top of our I/O block to make sure we're pulling any of that heat off to give more stable HDMI stability. On top of that, we also have a new wireless module, which if you wanted to hook these receivers up into a room where you're not doing a full network, you can actually do wireless connectivity, but we wanted to make sure that we didn't take away from the audio performance of the receiver as well. So not only is this wireless module completely cabineted separately from the receiver, but it's also grounded separately from any of the components that'll be handling signal processing or amplification. Of course, we have the massive ES power transformer, which is just known very well as taking that power from the wall and delivering it to your system. And if you actually look down here at the heatsink, our engineers have even gone to the point of making sure that each one of these fins resonate at a different frequency. So you'll see one of these little dots in a different location, and that helps with resonance to make sure we don't take away from audio quality. So Joe, as deep as I want to dive into the tech side of things, I just like to show the build side, because what's important is not only are these sounding and looking good, but are they built to last? And these are very rugged receivers, and our engineers have gone through a lot to make sure that they perform well. So just moving into some of the different formats that we support. HDMI 2.1, we have 4 HDMI 2.1 inputs on our 3000 series and higher receivers. And then we have 2 HDMI 2.0 inputs, which you can run your older components or even cable boxes to. So that way you can have a more seamless handshake between 2.0 devices and 2.1 devices. We also support all of the different video formats from Dolby Vision, HDR10, which we spoke about a little bit earlier, IMAX Enhanced. And then from the audio format side of things, we're supporting DTSX, Dolby Atmos, a lot of what is very common in our any receiver that you would purchase today. The big difference is just how many speaker terminals do you need, which is going to be the big deciding factor on which Sony receiver you're going to go with. If you're going to go with 9 channels, 11 channels, or 13 channels of audio, essentially. But one big feature, Joe, that we introduced is what's called 360 spatial sound mapping. And what this is
Yeah, I want to
audio
spend some
processing.
time on
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, I want to spend some time on that for sure, because it's a fascinating way that you guys have chosen to lay out the immersive sound, part of it. And that's really, of course, these days, what home theater advancements are all about in receivers is a more immersive kind of an experience than, what we had in the old 5.1 thing that we started with. So.
Yeah, and even Joe, if you wanted to do 5.1, you'd be able to really bring out more in that system through signal processing. And so 360 spatial sound mapping is there for a imperfect or even a perfect speaker layout where, let's say you have speakers in a position where you couldn't quite dial them in or get them exactly where you wanted to. Through 360 spatial sound mapping, we can really move those speakers around in theory and put them into areas where they're supposed to be, and giving you a more impressive soundstage, ultimately just more seamless audio passing from channel to channel. And this is just a feature that you can turn on or off. We're not forcing this on the industry. We know that there are a lot of people who want more of a purist and more of a flat and reference level of listening, where they're going to have the speakers exactly where they want them. And then we're going to have 360 spatial sound mapping for those people who, depending on the content they're watching, they can go ahead and toggle this on and off. All you need is minimum 5.1, and then you can unlock this feature through a room calibration. So the measurements that it takes, once you go through the calibration, it's quite extensive. They do distance to listening position and distance to screen and screen height and all this cool stuff. But just know that the amount of calibration that is happening to make sure that this processing is going to work as best as possible is truly impressive.
Well, and I think for a retailer like ourselves who does as much custom installation business as we do, and we know from our partners around the country, there are so many companies like ourselves doing a ton of custom. Very often, you really can't put the speakers exactly where you'd like them to go. It's just not going to happen. And so, I think this is a good way of you guys technically to have started addressing, hey, look, even if things are not located in the perfect location physically, you've got a way to make the experience more immersive.
Yeah, no, really, that's what we were going for. Is ideally, we always want to make sure we have everything where we want it, but it's just not how it works out in this industry. And it can be, we unfortunately can't see through walls, or maybe we got into a job site a little bit later of the construction, and we just couldn't find out what exactly is going on. So in that case, hey, we have your back to our installers just as much as we do our customers who are listening in their home theaters. So. Overall, really excited for this feature, and this has just gotten rave reviews so far. So I'm really happy to see how well received this has been.
Yeah, it's great.
So just moving on, speaking of, we were talking about not getting speakers exactly where we want them, Joe. This is our connectivity portion where we can just talk about how all you can connect to the receiver. And one of the things you can do, if you look at the, there's a sub and rear wireless option, you can actually hook some of the Sony speakers that we have as wireless rears for our sound bars, and you can hook them up as wireless rears to our receivers. So I actually personally use this because I can't do ceiling speakers for my rears in my living room. And then behind me, I have my kitchen, a very open floor plan. So what I end up doing is I get these wireless speakers that I just power on and kind of throw in the back of the room for when I want to do movie night. And then when I'm not doing movie night, I have my left, center, and right channels just there at all times. So neat little feature there. We also have Google compatibility between Chromecast. I won't say the keyword and everyone's phones will go off, but that term. You also have Spotify Connect, and of course our favorite, which is going to be worth works with Sonos. And works with Sonos is our favorite, mostly because of how much Sonos is in this industry. They do a great job with the wireless sharing of audio between multi-room, and overall it's just a very seamless system. We can integrate into up to 32 zones of Sonos. So if you have an existing network, you can basically turn your Sony receiver into one of those Sonos zones. So that way you can control it through the app. The receiver toggles on automatically and will change the input whenever you hit play, which I know sounds pretty basic and rudimentary for a receiver to do, but normally you got to have a control system and program this. And it's just nice to be able to do it all through the application. So through the Sonos app, that is. So really excited to roll out this partnership. And the Works with Sonos badge also means that we have gone through extensive testing and making sure that this is going to work with the Sonos ecosystem as seamlessly as possible, Joe.
We think that's fantastic too, because certainly Sonos continues to be a real leader and just popular as heck. So the fact that you've got that compatibility now, yeah, good job on you guys.
Yeah, we just heard the call in the industry, and Sonos has just been an awesome partner to work with as well. So it's been just a win-win situation, I think, for everyone, and just really excited to finally have a turnkey solution for Sonos.
Yeah, man, love it.
So lastly, just to close out on our receiver portion, 5-year warranty. This is, you buy it once and you're good to go. You don't have to worry about having any issues down the road. And if you do, your installers at Gramophone will be able to help you out in getting that swapped out because it's warranted. And we really want to have a 5-year warranty just to show we're here for the life of the product. We don't want to give the impression that we're just here to sell something and then, just put it away and then you can upgrade in a couple years. This is showing that this is a statement piece, that this is here to stay. And these receivers are just super robust, but we want to give the insurance that, or the assurance rather, that, and the insurance, I guess you can say, that you have 5 years behind that product.
As many times as I've worked for manufacturers, I know there's no way you put a 5-year warranty on there unless you're very confident in how solidly the product is built and engineered. And just to briefly go back to some of your comments you made right out of the gate in terms of power supply and heat sinking and so forth, I was delighted to see that slide because these products, you want them to last. And yeah, the build quality, I was so happy to see you start with that because we haven't just been impressed with the performance of these new receivers, but we can see the build quality as well.
Yeah, Joe, I've put on a good 15, 20 pounds of muscle since we released these receivers because it's just, they are so hefty, and having to carry them around and demo them, it's been fun. So no, these receivers are just absolute tanks. And I mean, just as built well as they sound good and look good. And overall, again, just really excited to have these.
Good. Game Day says, I like that warranty. Right on, man. So yeah, well, thank you for taking us through this part of it, and you've got plenty of other goodies to show us.
Yeah, so Sony, I mean, we're known for video, but we just like to start and remind people that actually we came from audio and transistors and all that fun stuff was our bread and butter. And so just getting into that, why Sony as a brand story. The one thing that I really like to touch on when it comes to the video portion is what's called lens to living room. And this is just showing that Sony, from studio to soundbar and from reference to receiver, whatever term we want to use, lens to living room, I think is the most applicable because Sony is a movie studio. And what other TV manufacturer has a movie studio to show their pedigree for the film industry and what all we're doing in that industry? So from the inception of the idea of a movie, Sony is in their hand, or we have our hands in every aspect of that creation process. If we take a look at the cameras, the Cine Alta and the Venice cameras, awesome cameras. And what makes these cameras so nice is, I don't know if anyone has seen the new Top Gun. It happened to be the most popular movie, I think, of the past year. And finally, a sequel that just holds its weight. I think it's really cool to see a sequel just do so well. But that movie was brought to you because we're able to fit these specific Sony cameras inside of the cockpit of, and I think they were F-18s. Whereas before we would have had a point of view camera that could have taken away from the immersiveness of that scene and given a little bit more of an amateur look to a film, where now you have cinema grade quality in an area that you couldn't get it before. And again, just talking to the Sony cameras, they use Sony cameras on the set of the new Top Gun. And not to mention, of course, our monitors. So we'll be talking about this guy in just a second. Our monitors are actually used to grade color and make sure that everything looks proper before our directors release that movie to the movie theater and then ultimately to home video, which we obviously make some solid TVs. So we understand how it's supposed to look on color grading equipment, and we provide that equipment to the industry. We also understand how we're going to display it accurately when we get that TV home. And this monitor is actually $1,000 per inch, Joe. It's about 30 inch, 30 grand. In case you're wondering, how do movie budgets get to where they're at? Well, when you're buying 10 or 20 or 30 of these, it tends to add up. So with that, these actually won an Academy Award for the advancement of the film industry. And I didn't even know hardware could win Academy Awards. Poor Leonardo DiCaprio losing an Academy Award to a monitor, but it was really cool just to see what all Sony's doing on every aspect and of the film industry. And again, how do we apply that to the living room TV?
I love it. Kavon, if you don't mind, let's just go back to audio for one quick second, because David
Yeah.
is asking, some of his speakers are relatively low in impedance. So he's wondering about if these new receivers will handle lower impedances comfortably.
So, David, I don't want to oversell these receivers. However, at our launch event in February, we rented out basically this mansion that had a garage space that we converted to a theater. And in that theater, we were driving 4 ohm speakers, all 13 channels driven at 4 ohms from just the 7,000. Now, I can't speak to the 5,000 or the 3,000 supporting that much of a load, but the 7,000, which is our flagship, was able to handle 13 channels driven at 4 ohms. And that demo was going all day. It was our launch event. So we had demonstrations going every 20 minutes. We were cranking that thing up. And it handled it very well. But just keep in mind, they will support all the way down to 4 ohms. And then, of course, depending on if you go with the 3, 5, or 7,000, because the power ratings are different, some of the build to the 7,000 is a little special. Just know that the performance will vary, but we do offer it to go as low as 4 ohms.
Thank you.
The long-winded answer of yes, it will support.
That's okay. I understand also why you're trying to detail that, because there are some speakers out there that are ridiculously low loads, but those sorts of things should have a separate amplifier on them anyway. So fair enough.
Yeah, it's it is so there's so many moving parts, Joe, in this industry. It's
Yeah,
tough to give a straight yes or a no. So I just
yeah.
want to, I think prefacing is very important whenever we're trying to get a solution out. But let's go and we'll move on the TV side. So
Okay.
talking about the lens to living room story, the TV that is the pinnacle of that are the Master Series TVs. And this is typically the A95, the Quantum.OLED, or our 8K options. They kind of hold the Master Series badge, which they hold that badge because it is the cream of the crop for our Sony TVs. So one of the big comparisons we like to point to year over year is a TV shootout that happens in New York, which basically what they do is they have side by side every brand's flagship TV. And what I love most about this demonstration, Joe, is that first off, you have that BVM X300 monitor there playing the referee. So that is in the dead center of the room. And it's the reference. People look at that. And then whatever TV can come closest to replicating that image, $1,000 per inch on an OLED, basically wins. And what I love most about the shootout, again, not only do you not know what TV you're looking at because they cover the logos and they make sure that it's as uniform of a comparison as possible, but also these TVs are playing real life content. We're not talking about test patterns, which a lot of TV rating websites will rate TVs based off of test patterns and color reproduction in those test patterns. But really what it comes down to is how is it applicable to the everyday content you're watching? And so this side-by-side comparison is actually done with majority real-life Blu-ray content that we're going to be enjoying in home. And with that, the A95 won the 2023 Value Electronics TV Shootout. A little round of applause. Really excited. This just happened a couple of weeks ago. And really excited that we took this. I think this is the 5th year running. If we go back ever since 2018, this TV or this level of TV, the Master Series, has always taken King of TV. And it just happened at 2023 as well. So really excited. And this is just going to be that really push of a technology model. Every few years, Joe, I think we have a TV that you kind of walk by at the store and you look at it, then you do a double take and you're like, whoa, that looks crazy. And that's kind of what the A95 is that double take TV. And we offer it now in a 77-inch as well. So really excited. But before we get into the specifics of that, Joe, the A95 is just now available. So everyone at Gramophone can currently order this and really pre-order it. We're actually filling our orders currently. So you are at the right time if you are looking for this model. The back orders are finally getting filled, and now we're able to kind of get into seeing this model out in the wild because it had a little bit of a delay.
You know, I love it. What blew me away was at CEDIA, we shot a lot of video from a lot of our manufacturers. When we stopped at the Sony booth, and I saw you there real briefly, I was just kind of floored when I saw this TV at the, you know, you've got lighting in a big hall like that, a big CEDIA hall where the lighting is, you know, grocery store bright kind of lighting. And yet the colors and the brightness of the picture, it just popped. And I thought to myself, man, if you see this in a even reasonably darkened, you know, living room, you know, in the evening when you're watching a movie, this is going to look astonishing because it looks so good under such terrible, you know, circumstances.
Yeah. I think the days, Joe, is this going the living room or the den or the basement? I think those days for OLED are gone because it is equally bright as some of our, even the midline TV LED TVs, Joe. The new Quantum.OLED, the brightness is just through the roof, and we'll talk about the rating the brightness, you know, how
Right.
much in comparison to last year. But before we get into the specifics, I just want to talk about one of the big things that is driving all of the King of TV shootout and what are these side by side comparisons doing? Why are we looking at side by sides? What is the difference in this picture and this picture if, let's say, the panel is coming from a similar place or a similar manufacturer? And really what it comes down to is processing and making sure that we're taking that source signal and displaying the creator's intent or the director's intent. We don't want to take away from that, Joe. That's really the idea is we want to make sure that the football field is as green as it would be in real life, but not to the point where it looks radioactive or it's popping so much to the point where it just looks unnatural. You want everything to have a natural, but also pop. As well. And so the XR processor is the world's first cognitive based processor. And I know artificial intelligence and where everything is going is a little freaky. So saying that this is AI based, it is AI based in the fact where it senses the image based off of how humans perceive content, and then it is processing based off of that. So let's say you all are focused on me, or maybe you're focused on the presentation. You're not necessarily focused on everything happening behind your screen right now or maybe elsewhere in the room. And so that's what the XR processor is doing. It's saying, okay, this is the focal point. We're going to process and analyze this most importantly, and then we're going to focus everything else on the background that might be blurred out or not have as much detail that is needed to allocate the same processing to it. So just want to go ahead and preface that this is the most advanced processor that we've seen, so much to the point where it actually won 2020's Best of CES award, which normally at CES, you're seeing hardware win, not a processor. You're seeing something like a car or something cool winning some Best of Show awards. And to see an image processor on a TV just shows how great this thing was in pushing the industry. So anyway, the XR processor will be in every TV we talk about today. And I just want to go ahead and lay that out because this is really what's driving a lot of that awesome technology, Joe.
Horsepower, baby. Love it.
That's what it's all about. Awesome. So with our XR processor, we have a processing algorithm called XR Clear Image that is in the models that you see below. XR Clear Image is a processing algorithm here dedicated to help with compressed content. Content like this stream that just so happens to compress because it has to distribute over internet and also cable service and streaming, obviously. Sony, we're very much a purist company. We want everyone to enjoy content as best quality quality as possible. But who's to say that streaming isn't the best quality in terms of the ease of access and being able to just hit play and not have to go dust off your Blu-ray disc and pop it into a Blu-ray player. Now I am very much the Blu-ray guy. I still have my closet of movies I'm holding on to. However, we understand that that's not the most applicable for our clients, and so XR Clear Image is here to help with streaming content, bringing it as close to Blu-ray as we possibly can. And so with that, we're going into larger panels, Joe. And in those larger panel sizes, we now have a 98-inch, which we'll talk about in a sec. You're going to notice those blemishes, especially with streaming, a little bit more. So that's a lot of the driving factor behind this processing algorithms to help out with that compressed content, especially in those larger panels where they might be a little bit more noticeable.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
So that's the processing algorithm. I would say the big thing that is behind our TVs this year. I'm getting into the model by model breakdown. We pretty much covered the A95. So I think the A95, this is the quantum.oled king of TV that we just chatted about. And just know that it's twice as bright as our last iteration. So the A95K is now going to be the predecessor to the A95L. Which will be twice as bright as our last iteration. So if you already have an A95K and you're like, man, that is bright, this guy just pushes the envelope a little bit more. And we want to make sure that we understand brightness is not just always pumping out brightness. It is the impact of high and low contrast areas that we're talking about here. So we don't just want to blind everyone who's watching these TVs. We want the sun in the desert sky versus an already bright landscape to pop a little bit more. So that way you get a little bit more of a dramatic effect in the content you're watching. So we just want to make sure you understand twice as bright. Don't worry, it's not going to blind you. You won't have to put your sunglasses on. It is just going to be a much more impactful image.
And again, I can attest that even under the bright lights of CDA, there wasn't anything unnatural about how it looked to me. It looked absolutely fantastic. And I'm so excited that, it was probably 5 years or so ago, I started thinking, well, how much more can they advance picture quality in these TVs? It's getting so good. But you guys, this is, again, like you're saying, twice as bright as what you had before. It's incredible what you guys are able to do right now.
It really is, Joe. And again, this is one of those TVs that, hey, as soon as Gramophone gets it on display, go down, check it out, because you really do have to see it kind of to understand, oh, I see what they were talking about. I don't want to overhype it, but just get in and see it as soon as you can, because it really is one of those TVs that I'm personally, if you got the TV guy excited to upgrade, it's a good set. And so, that happens every few years. So I'm really excited to get this set myself.
Love it.
Awesome. So now stepping into our other OLED that we have, it's not quantum.oled, but the A80L is really here to be that, hey, you want a Sony OLED? Here it is. I'm not even going to call this a value OLED, because that can give it the presumption that maybe this is not of better quality or good quality. And just remember that with the A80, we're using a traditional OLED panel. So in order to hit a certain cost point, we need to make sure that we are able to do that with the panel that we're using, but you still get the benefits of the XR processor. You still get the XR clear image. And then all the great stuff that comes with that prestigious processor. And just know that if the big brother or sister to the A81 King of TV, this is like the Prince of TV, if you will, because it has a lot of the cool stuff that the A95 had, being OLED and being an XR. So this is going to be offered in a 55, 65, 77, and an 83. And so this will be replacing the 83A90J, which is carried over a few years just because it was such a particular screen size and not very big improvements were happening year over year at that size that justified a move. So now with the A80L, we're able to do that with the new processing algorithm and just overall the improvements to the XR we've had since the J lineup.
Okay, very good.
And just to preface as well, on the A95, I'm sorry, I forgot to say this, available in a 77. So 55, 65, and a 77. Finally, you don't have to go down in size for those 77-inch customers who wanted the cream of the crop. Now you can enjoy that size. So now going into our LED lineup, we just talked about OLED, and going back to the A80, if you notice the model number, when you see an A, that means Sony OLED. And then when you see an X, that means Sony LED. And the X95 is a mini LED model that will be available pretty much for the custom installation channel, which Gramophone you are. And you all have the opportunity as clients to get this TV through Gramophone, which is really exciting because this TV is not going to be available everywhere. There's going to be basically the dealers that support the custom install channel. And the reason why is because we wanted to offer a ultra premium mini LED option. So the mini LEDs, the benefit of them is that they're smaller density to a traditional LED. So you're able to fit more LEDs behind the panel, which I think there's no argument, Joe, that more LEDs equals better. But with that, with more LEDs and or let's just call it more horsepower, you need a better driver or you need a processor to be able to drive all of that hardware. And again, that's why the XR processor is really able to drive this system, is because we have a processing algorithm called Backlight Master Drive. For our old fans of the Z9D series, that was the processing algorithm that controlled that level of LED control, which was individual LED control, which is very challenging to do in a TV. So now that we have applied that to the X95, you have an 85-inch. So this is going to be only in an 85-inch and essentially no compromise on a LED performance level versus going with, let's say, the 83A80, which might not hit a certain brightness level, but gives you that better contrast than a traditional LED TV would. So we just want to offer a couple of large format benefits. And the thing with the X95 is that if you wanted the X93, went the wrong way, the X95 will basically be the no compromise version of that. So I see we have a couple of questions, Joe, if we want to go ahead and just address them first.
Yeah, John is asking if the A95 is going to be offered in an 83-inch format.
Yeah, no 83 as of right now. We just moved to the 77 this past year, and I don't personally know anything on the manufacturing side, but I can imagine manufacturing cost of the new quantum.oleds is just to the point where 77 is really where we can get into.
Okay. So, I mean, at the rate you guys are advancing technology, who knows what will come in the future, but at least in the near term, we're not going to see that in an 83. And then,
Yeah, you have to drop down in your size just a little bit.
okay. And then Gamebrun's asking, how do the new TVs handle current gen gaming consoles in terms of supporting 4K, 120 frames per second, HDR, and that sort of thing?
No, Game Bun, great question. So we actually have a new game menu in all of our new TVs for the 2023 lineup, which is a quick access menu where you can toggle on variable refresh rate, motion blur reduction. You can actually adjust black level performance. I play a game called Escape from Tarkov, which is a very dark themed game, and I die to people who are hiding in the shadows all the time. And you can just quickly toggle your black level up depending on the game that you're playing, which is really cool. Now, to answer the question about 4K 120 HDR Dolby Vision for gaming, the A95 will be the only TV that does Dolby Vision for gaming, but all of our TVs will support HDMI 2.1. We have two HDMI 2.1 inputs that'll do 4K 120 or 8K 60. And as far as input lag, just make sure that you throw the TV in game mode. Game mode is going to shut off a lot of the processing algorithms that add to input lag, but give you a benefit of picture quality. But if you're going for a more competitive experience, then just put the TV in game mode and you'll get the lowest input lag that we offer. Now, obviously, that's going to be dependent on 4K, 60, 1080p, 120 resolution. So you can find a lot of that, a lot of those ratings online. I think there have been some review companies that actually have that.
So it sounds like maybe a little experimentation on the part of the gamer is part of the answer there. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And another question here from GK is ringing in again. Do all these sets have ATSC 3.0 tuners?
They actually, that is a good question, GK. I'll have to get back to you, Joe. And GK, if you want to follow up with an email to Joe, I know that we've done ATSC 3.0 with our last generation. I just want to make sure, and you're actually the first to ask me, but I know that we've done it with our last generation. I'm like a 90% yes, but let me go ahead and confirm before I give you a for sure yes or no. But I'm more comfortable saying yes until I just clarify.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right. So now with the X93, this is going to be mini LED as well. Now just keep in mind with mini LED, you have more or less LEDs behind the panel. So the X93 is going to be less amount of LEDs than the 85-inch. as the X95L. Remember, that X95 is only in an 85 because, again, at that size, you're going to notice the blemishes in blooming or other things that LEDs are still improving at when it comes to picture quality. So with the X93, you're going down into a 75 and a 65 as well. So you get very good mini LED control because you're going down in your screen size. That XR processor really helps because it has that same backlight master drive processing algorithm driving the mini LEDs behind the panel. So now with the X93 lineup, we're really excited to partner with Leon, which actually is doing a frame for our TV. So now you no longer have to sacrifice aesthetic when you want to go for a aesthetic TV as much as it's off as it's when it's on. So the X93 mini LED now gives you an option to have a frame around it. And again, we saw a need, Joe, in the industry for a premium level frame type TV because you do sacrifice a lot on quality when you want to go with this type of aesthetic. And it's just nature of the beast of having to hit a certain price point. We totally understand it. So we just wanted to offer a no compromise option with the X93 mini LEDs with frame, and Leon will be providing that. And Joe, I think we chatted earlier, this will be available through Gramophone. So really excited that you all will be offering this as a solution to your clients.
And we're so excited that you've stepped into this category now as Sony because, again, we do a lot of custom installation work in very nice homes. And there's a customer that even though our current flat panel TVs are so much more cosmetically appealing than, 25, 30 years ago, a huge box sitting in your living room, there's customers who don't want that either. So, being able to do what you guys are now doing with Leon means you're going to be able to get a beautiful frame, doesn't even really look like a television set at all. And yet when you pop it on and you sit down to watch Top Gun or whatever that movie is, you're not having to compromise on the performance. You're getting a really good looking Sony television, and you didn't even, if you're a guest that walked in, you didn't even realize it was a TV. So we love the fact that you guys have jumped into this category, and we're happy to be able to partner with Leon to offer that directly to our customers if they want to buy it through us. So yeah,
Yeah,
good job on that. I'm so glad to
thank
see
you,
the
Joe.
product.
Yeah, and the app as well that'll come with the frame will be a Leon app. You can purchase art through there. It does come with some art, and then you can even use your own artwork if you wanted to.
Right.
So very versatile from the art selection process as well. So yeah, just really excited for this. So anyway, this just rolled out. It became available to order on the 10th. So talk about timing. We are just a couple weeks in, and we'll be seeing these in more and more homes here shortly. So really excited for this series and the kind of the refresh that the X93 had this year with the Leon frame. And lastly, Joe, just to finish up with all the TVs that we offer with the XR processor, the X90L, this is our entry into premium is kind of what we call it. So it's still full array local dimming. We actually now have a aluminum bezel around the edge instead of a plastic bezel. So from a premium aesthetic, it looks a whole lot better. And we offer this down to a 55, 65, 75, 85, and a 98-inch option. And the 98 is going to be coming in at 10,000. And I know that is certainly a lot of money. I am not going to be running out to my store and picking one of these up tomorrow. But to understand that where the 98 lineup or 100-inch lineup was, 18,000 to 20,000 about 3 years ago. The past year or the year after that, it dropped to 15, then down to 12, and now we're down to 10. So just in a few years, we've seen large format really become a lot more enticing. And this is really here for those ultra short throw customers, Joe. So those customers who want to go with an ultra short throw projector, but that's a two-piece projection solution. The performance is depending on the lighting in the room. And also what happens when you're clumsy like myself and you stub your toe on a cabinet. You nudge that ultra short throw projector out of alignment, and then you have to realign. So ultra short throw, I think, is a great option for our clients. And now that we're able to get this into that price point, I think we're going to see more large format TVs filling into that market. So seeing a 98-inch full array driven by XR processor, just really excited to see that. And of course, you can go all the way down to 55-inch with this lineup as well.
Kavon, I'm glad you pointed out both that $10,000 is in fact a lot of money, but also on the other hand, that you gave a little historical perspective because it's incredible what you're able to buy now for $10,000. I mean, I first sold a flat panel TV, a plasma TV 25 years ago that had just come down from $14,000 in 1998 money. From 14,000, its
Oh
new price
man.
point was 10,000. So exactly this amount of money for a
Mhm.
42-inch product that, if you looked at the colors and the brightness, was nothing like this.
Right.
So the
It's
fact
like
that
a
for
computer monitor now.
oh my gosh, yeah, yeah. So
Wow.
sure, 10 grand is a lot of money, but it's incredible what you're getting for the 10 grand compared to what was, I don't know, in 1998 dollars is probably $20,000 or more easily. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think the evolution of electronics is a beautiful and also frustrating thing because you remember, wait, I paid what for a few years. So it is, such as nature of the beast. But the nice thing again about the Google TVs that we have and all the TVs we have actually is that they support Google. And speaking of regretting the long-term decision, I know this is kind of a shameless plug, Joe, but I think it works out. You don't have to worry about being left in the dust with your updates. And actually, my TV back here, which I'll power on, is a 940E, and I'm still getting updates for that TV. So
Okay.
just as a hey, if you don't want that sting to happen as much, where you're having to go and upgrade sooner rather than later, I can speak for the ecosystem, really helping that upgrade from happening as long as possible.
So just really quick before we move on, Kevon, MD Chaz is asking, I'd like a TV with nice speakers built in. Am I alone? But the truth is that these new TVs are so incredibly slim. Every good speaker I've ever heard, you've got at least some room. I've heard some wonderful bookshelves, but most of my favorites are more like tower sized. It,
Mhm.
you're certainly not alone, MD, in your desire for great sound out of just the flat panel TV, but the physics of it make it sort of impossible. So the good news, of course, is we have so many now, sunk into the wall type options where you really don't see, or you're very much not aware of the speakers. But yeah, a flat panel TV with great, speakers built into it is really kind of an impossibility at this stage because of the physics.
Yeah, it is a challenge, Joe, and actually, yeah, bonus points to GK for acoustic panels because he actually plays right in. I'm gonna get him a Sony shirt. He can go and do my job now because he seems to understand this. But yeah, the cool part about the OLEDs is they actually have, and I use the word actually here poorly, actuators on the back of the TV. And the actuators will vibrate the panel at such a high frequency, Chaz, that it'll actually create the sound through the glass of the TV itself. So you have a 65-inch, 77-inch TV. You now have a 65 or 77-inch speaker. But our OLEDs are specific to that technology because you cannot vibrate the back of an LED board. You will get crazy flickering and all that stuff. So with OLED having self-illuminating pixels, we can vibrate the glass and basically produce audio through the acoustic panel, as GK pointed out. And just know also on our traditional LED lineup, the X93 and the X95, there is a little lip. So you'll have the TV bezel. You'll also have a little lip under that, which actually will forward fire audio. And I know that sounds pretty basic, but a lot of TVs, as Joe pointed out, because of the aesthetic now, they're bottom or rear firing. So you're firing your audio into a wall or into a cabinet. But Sony, we give up the aesthetic, the beauty of the TV, if you will, but at the cost of having better TV speaker performance. If you want to have this in a tertiary room, like a bedroom or maybe like just a den or something like that, where you don't want to do a sound bar and everything else. So even our mini LED TVs do have better TV speakers, I will say, but TV speakers at the end of the day are only going to do so much. And I think that was where Joe was going, and some kind of a solution we recommend. But we do have some improvements to TV speakers. As they tend to work with our soundbars and our receivers, we want to make sure that they keep up if we're going to integrate those into our audio equipment on the TV speaker side. So, Joe, sorry for the long-winded
No
answer.
worries.
Just wanted to make sure, we do have a little bit of an answer there, but as Joe pointed out, a little limiting on the technology.
No problem at all. We've got about 10 minutes or so to continue on. We're we've got a question about when will the A95L77 be on display at the Columbia store. And the honest truth, Dave, is I'm not 100% sure. I don't typically work the sales floors. So, but, let's stay in touch with us, please, because it won't be too terribly long now. So we're excited to show it to you, of course. Uh, Thanks, Dave. In the roughly 10 minutes or so we've got left, Kavon, I know you've got some more goodies to show us, and one of my favorite categories is coming up here. So,
Yeah, just a quick brush up on the projector lineup. We don't have a new model per se, but for anybody who is interested in projector, just know that we have a full laser lineup. So no more
yep,
lamp-based projectors, which have pretty much been the pain point on your on anyone who wants a projector. I think
right.
Joe, the issue is that when someone is like, "Hey, do you want to do a projector?" The first thing you think about is the sports bar that has that projector that's shooting from 40 feet away and it's on this terrible screen. And you're like, no, of course I don't want that. But you don't have a laser projector or a home theater light reflecting screen or certain things that can get you into TV like performance without having to sacrifice the bank or the wallet. Because now we have a option all the way down to $6,000 for a native 4K laser projector, which normally these are you're looking at. I think really our only competitors in the $8,000 to $9,000 range. And just keep in mind, I threw out the word native 4K. So this means that it is inputting a 4K signal and it is outputting a 4K signal on a 4K panel, not through shifting to 1080p panels. And we want to make sure that we distinguish that because when people tend to see Sony pricing, they're like, wait a second, I saw this that can do 4K at so and so price point, and a lot of times it's about half the price. And we want to just make sure that, again, going to the director's intent, the creator's intent, we don't want to alter the signal format as much as we possibly can, Joe. And that's why we only stick with native 4K panels. And actually, prior to this, we only did a native 1080p projector at that price point, that $2,000 price point. We just cannot do 4K native at that price. And so just know if you want to hop into native 4K, you want a laser light engine behind it, we have an option as low as 6,000, which again, this Joe, 2 years ago, we had our 915, our 8 and 9 series projectors. And I'm sorry to those clients if we have any that are listening. 2,000 lumens on a laser was $35,000 2 years ago. And if we want to talk about a technology jumping light speed, it has been projection. So to be able to get this level of laser light output and also the processor. So the X1 Ultimate for projector, this little processor that you're seeing here, this was actually only available on our $100,000 projector. 80,000 excluding the lens, which is about 15,000. So to see this processor make its way across the lineup, even down to our entry level, is really, really awesome to see, Joe. And overall, we're just excited to have a very strong lineup and be able to offer an option for our 16:9 customers, our cinematic customers who are going to be going between multiple aspect ratios. That's kind of where we recommend the 6,000 and higher because they have automated lenses that can go in between aspect ratios. So we have a projector for every customer and really just wanted to point out a very solid lineup. And you actually have these on display at your showroom in both Timonium and Columbia. You have the 7000 ES, which of course, if you wanted to see, the 6 or the 5, they can dial that 7 down to give you similar performance. And, they can always hop on the phone with me, Joe, and we can dial that in to give a customer the most realistic level of performance with the 6 and the 5,000. But yeah, just really excited for a solid projector lineup. And that's pretty much where we're going to wrap up, Joe, is with that solid projector lineup and still available, still getting updates in terms of making sure that we're staying up to date on any new formats that come out. But just know that that projector lineup is just as solid as the other two that we just talked about.
And Kavon, I think it's of course so easy to get excited about what you guys can do now with a 65-inch, a 77-inch picture, and so forth. But the simple truth is that a lot of people nowadays, versus I don't know how many years ago, we're certainly still doing what you would call a completely a traditional home theater where you're walking into a room and that's the theater room. But so many folks now are really opting for, they're taking a big great room or a big basement or something like that and wanting to host a lot of their friends there for parties, Super Bowl, watch the movie together with the whole family, that kind of
Yep.
thing. And in that sort of situation, really a 65 or 77 inch TV product is not necessarily the right thing. If you can get a high quality laser driven projection that's going to give you native 4K resolution on a 120-inch screen, in those situations, a lot of times that is the right solution, not a 65 or 77 or even an 83 kind of picture. So I know the whole industry is selling a little bit less in projectors now every year than what has come before, but I'm so excited to see what you continue to leap forward in what you're able to offer at continually lower and lower prices. What you can get in that $6,000, the Model 5000 that you have, it just crushes what was available even a few years ago, like you say, at $10,000 and $15,000. So, I always urge people not to sleep on the idea of, hey, what if we go for a really nice big picture, still with a lot of clarity? The Sony projectors are the first product I would want to talk to them about.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, thanks for that, Joe. And with the talk on laser, I think that it solved a lot of the issues that looking like a projector when you say the word projector, in terms of the light delivery. So you have more of a direct path of transfer. Just imagine, shouting at somebody across the street and then you put your hands up and then you shout. It's a more direct transfer of light to the screen. So you get less of that lost in the space. You also have instant on and off, meaning you don't have to worry about the lamp warming up. And there's a lot of great benefits to laser. On top of that, I'm not having to replace your lamp every couple of years because the
right.
brightness is going down over time. You just get solid performance for the life of the product, and you're more than likely going to run into a format change before you're going to need a new laser light engine, which are rated, by the way, at 20,000 hours before half-life. So that is 20,000 hours, 8 hours a day for about 10 years. And hey, if you're watching that much projection, I'm going to come over to your place because good for you. But a lot of times you're going to run into an upgrade for format or resolution before you're going to need a new laser. And actually, today, Joe, do you want to address
Yeah,
Dave's
let's talk
question?
about. Yeah, Dave has a specific suggestion about or question about. He's got a projector that needs to be manually changed with his URC. Do any of your new projectors auto change to keep up with the movie aspect ratio changes?
This will forever be the pain, I think, of projection or aspect
Yep.
ratios. And thankfully, Dave, well, unthankfully, not directly on the Sony projectors, but I'm going to cover my Sony name and I'm going to say there are products available, such as a Mad VR, which is a processor that in real time will remove black bars and scale the image to be as natural looking of a stretch as possible. I, again, not affiliated with Mad VR, or we just know about the product. We've used the product, and we can truly say that that is a solid option and really one of the few options in removing black bars in real time. Because as of right now, you're going to have to basically dial into the aspect ratio, which I think for Top Gun, the most narrow was 16:10. Which is going to end up giving you the black bars on the left and right, but that's going to prevent you from over scanning on those one or two scenes. Christopher Nolan, another director that I love to death, and then also, why are you going between a million aspect ratios? So just know, Dave, that there are products out there available. They right now, I think Mad VR starts retail at 10,000. And just know that with the technology available out there over time, that is going to be driving down in cost as well. So you certainly do have something out there. I have seen a Mad VR sell with a $6,000 projector, and that is because a client wanted to do 2.4L, but they didn't want to go with a automatic shift lens and also have to go with a Mad VR, which would have bumped them into the $30,000 price point. So they actually went with a budget projector, got a Mad VR that does the scaling, and they have a projector that they don't even need a motorized shift for. So there is a lot of cool ways that you can incorporate this, but again, as of right now, not directly on the projector, Dave. I just wanted to offer you some kind of a solution. And by the way, Gramophone does offer this, and they do have it on display. So if you want to see how it works, you can definitely go check it out at the showroom.
Well, thanks for that very complete answer, Kavon. And I just want to mention that as frustrating as it is to, let's say, buy a computer and 3 years later, for the same money, you can see one with, 2 to even 3 times the price, or I'm sorry, the processing power. To some extent, really, that's what we're seeing in our industry now. So many of these products, they really reside on, as we've talked about in detail with your products, the processing power, the engine behind it is what really drives it. Let me just mention a couple things. The first is to urge all of our customers who haven't bought anything from uh, Sky by Gramophone previously. There's a lot of Sony product and other products that can be purchased through Sky, and you'll always get fast and free shipping. And a safe, secure checkout if you buy from Sky. And there's another Sony product that I want to talk about a little bit. A few years ago, I bought a pair of Sony headphones because I called a friend of mine in the industry who knew a lot more about phones than I did. And I said, listen, what I want is something really good sounding. Let's stay under $500, but it's got to be able to get thrown in my luggage because I had nice headphones that were way too big to throw in my luggage. And you guys have provided, Kavon, a pair of Sony 1000 XM5s. That's going to be our giveaway. So um, our friend Charlie has just put up the QR code, and also the link is coming up now. So please do take advantage, enter to win for all of you customers who have stayed on, all the Gramophone customers and those who are new to Gramophone who have stayed on. And again, Kavon, thank you so much for your generosity with the 1000 XM5 headphones that you're providing, but also just for your generosity in the way that you shared your time with us this evening, because I was so excited to be able to have Sony as a vendor, and even more excited that you were available to be able to come on with us, because each time I've met you at these various industry trade functions, I always walk away thinking, what a nice guy, what an easy guy to get along with. So
Thank you,
to
Joe.
you're welcome. Doing this kind of thing on such a well recognized brand that's so important to us here at Gramophone, but also with such a nice guy at the same time. And your presentation, by the way, was everything I thought it was going to be when we skimmed through briefly earlier today. So let's just take a moment to thank you again, Kavon, but also all of our Gramophone friends who have paid attention to us and watched during this presentation. Jay Lucky Dog says, love my Sony TV and AVR. Outstanding. And GK says, and the XM5 was better than a competitive product at the headphone shootout. So
Yeah, they also do headphone. They do all the shootouts. And then Dave, thank you as well for the purchase of your Sony projector years ago. To everyone who has Sony product and just trusts us, and we tend to I don't want to say have Sony fans, but I'm a Sony fan myself. I've
yeah,
had the product prior to, and once you get an understanding of what Sony does, you kind of just want to tell everyone, like, no, 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 Sony does a great thing, and I'm telling you. And some people are a little hesitant. I'm shooting on a Sony camera right now, and it's just it's really neat to have an ecosystem of all products that we don't essentially need. These are all wants, and just really exciting products to have and enjoy. So anyway, thank you, Joe. I just want to echo the sentiment to have a brand and a company like Gramophone and a dealer that is not only such a great partner to Sony, but offers to the industry on the custom installation side what a lot of our retail partners are offering. It's so refreshing because you don't have to have a showroom. You don't have to have this area where you're going to show all of this cool stuff for your clients to listen. A lot of dealers, they just say, no, you need this, and that's all you need, and we're going to get it set up for you in your home, and no questions asked. But you all want to go in through that experience of explaining it and demoing it and showing it and touching and feeling. And so I just want to say, everyone who has Gramophone in their backyard, you truly have something that is very special, and be sure to utilize them for any of your needs. They're an awesome partner for us, and we're just excited you guys are able to take advantage of them. So anyway, thank you, Joe.
well, Kayvon, thank you for recognizing that there is a ton of custom installation work that basically gets done at a coffee shop. Here's what I'm recommending, and the customer signs off and really never has the chance to say, well, if I did step up to this next level of theater, what would I hear? What would I feel? What would I see? And what control options are there to make it easy for me to control all of that? And we really are lucky here at Gramophone to be able to have this synergy of all the custom installation expertise that we've got, but consumers can actually just sit right down with a favorite movie that they've brought in, or that we can dial up on a Kaleidoscape type product, and and give them the opportunity to really evaluate what they're going to get before we go ahead and give them the final bid and start the actual work of installation and so forth. So you're right to point out how lucky we are. And once again, Kavon, thank you. Sony, thank you. And to all of our fans in Gramophone land, thank you. You'll of course be able to watch this again on YouTube. It'll post basically immediately upon us finishing up. So thanks again. Make sure you enter to win the beautiful Sony headphones that have gotten donated to us by Kavon and their team. Thanks to all of you, and we're going to sign off for the evening. Take care and good luck.
Bye, everyone.